Hello and what's up, GSC Pokemon Challenges fam? How you guys doing? I'm a little late for Halloween. I got a request from a longtime channel member, Marbleous Dave, who asked me to do a Crobat run for Halloween. I really wanted to do this in time for Halloween, it just didn't work out, so instead we're doing it right now. And Crobat is an incredibly interesting Pokemon. It's 20th ranked out of 251 Pokemon in terms of base stats. It's coming in with a 535 base stat total, 90 in attack, 80 in defense, 70 in special attack, 80 in special defense, 130 in speed, so it's a speed demon, and 85 base HP. So all the way around, a really good Pokemon. It is in the medium fast level up group, so it's not going to get quite as many levels as quickly as some other challengers, but we really need to focus in on this Pokemon's moveset because it doesn't get that many attacking moves via level up. It's only going to get Leech Life, which it starts with, Bite, and Wing Attack. So we're definitely going to be going for some supersonic strats here, and later in the game, some Confuse Ray strats. I don't think Mean Look's ever going to be really important. I think we're going to be faster than just about everything. So we're just going to have to see how this works out. Now, I do like that this Pokemon actually learns Fly in this generation, but outside of that, there's really not a whole lot of TMs that we're going to learn in the Johto section. I mean, Return is going to be basically one of our best moves. So I'm really not sure how this Pokemon's going to work out, but we're going to test it out. We're going to see. I'm going to go as far as I can on minimum battles within reason, and then from there, we'll just start taking optional battles. Now, it's important to note that we're going to be running this Pokemon on 0 DVs. This is the worst possible Crobat. If you want to see how the best possible Crobat does, we're going to keep that going in the minimum battles series. But for now, we have to try to find a way through with this Pokemon when it has its worst stats, and that could add a lot of challenge. Because while we know that this Pokemon on max DVs has gotten through Falkner and Bugsy on minimum battles in the main series, it's still kind of up in the air if it's going to be able to do that with lower stats. Now, as far as rivals to go up against, I'm actually going to go up against the Cyndaquil team because we'd start with Leech Life and we'd get Fly later on that would make the Chikorita line completely easy. But we also have the situation where we start the game with only the move Leech Life as far as a damaging move. And that should mean that this will be pretty tough to get through these fire type opponents in the early game because we're not going to get that many TMs to really use in order to take that Pokemon out. When you look at our TM learn set, nothing is going to be good against the fire type. Theoretically, in the late game, once we got to Kanto, if we took the last rival battle, we could have Giga Drain there and we could use that in order to beat his Feraligatr. I mean, I know that's looking really far ahead. Who knows how we're going to do, but hey, this is the 4th full game solo run that we're doing here on the channel. After, of course, Cleffa, we've done Spearow, and we've done Hoot Hoot. But really, Cleffa and Hoot Hoot need a redo because I didn't use Nightmare in those runs, and I'm pretty sure Nightmare would have made a huge difference. But here we're just going to go through a mountain of dialogue at the beginning, and then it's time to get into that Rival 1 fight and see how it goes. So I am going to go into this fight with the berry on because honestly, we might need it. So the first thing I think to do is to confuse this Pokemon, and then we are going to use Screech on this Pokemon to lower its defense. Now, of course, it's snapped out of confusion, so we have to reconfuse it. But honestly, without using any defense drops here, I don't think we would be doing enough damage to get through this. But fortunately, we do manage to get through because he knocks himself out in confusion without even having to use the berry. And now here, we're going to catch a Sentret here at the start of the game, just so that we have a Pokemon to use some HMs for us later on in the run. And with that, we can progress through this challenge. So the first big question is, of course, will we need any optional battles to get through the first gym? I'm going to try it on minimum battles, knowing it's not going to be super consistent. We're going to be going for confusion and Screech strats, but maybe we can make it work. So now it's just time to take on Honest Abe and see how it goes. So here in the first attempt against Honest Dave, we are obviously trying to confuse this Pokemon. Even on 0 DVs, we are faster than the Spearow. It hits itself in confusion, which is also very nice. The issue is that we actually need to land Screech, and now on low health, I'm just going to go into the Leech Life here, and we do manage to get through on the first attempt, even without a berry on, and we get to level 7. So that gives me a little bit of hope that Screech plus Confusion might be enough to get this to go. Rod, however, is actually turning out to be hard for this Pokemon, because He simply does a lot of damage with these Pidgeys, and we don't do very much damage to him. This one I get a really good range on the first Pidgey though, so as long as we can get him to hit himself in confusion as we screech on him, this should work out eventually. Still, the berry seems to be the way to make this at least reasonably consistent, so I'm going to go that strategy here. And after a couple resets, it does go, but we've got to run out of here and heal up basically between every battle because of the fact that we're just taking so much damage from these opponents. And now it's time to take on Falkner himself, and this could be a little bit rough. I'm definitely going to make sure to give the berry here, and we're coming in at level 8 with 31 HP, Screech, Leech Life, and Supersonic on the moveset. We've got 19 attack, 18 defense, 16 special attack, 18 special defense, and 26 speed. Let's just see if this is enough. So Falkner attempt number 1, of course we're going to confuse this Pidgey. It still hits us. It did only 3 damage though, so that's not really too bad. We do need to keep this Pokemon confused though, and Supersonic is refusing to hit. Still, we do get through the first Pidgey. We're faster than Pidgeotto, and it does hit itself in confusion the first turn and the second turn. And now I think we just simply have to set up all of the defense drops on this Pokemon. We reconfuse it. We're all the way down to 1 HP remaining, and it doesn't hit itself, and we lose the first attempt. This time we get back to the Pidgeotto with our berry still on, and we really just need this Pokemon to actually hit itself. Instead, it simply hits us, and we go down yet again. However, this time it took 5 attempts, but finally he did hit himself in confusion and knock himself out, getting us to level 9, and we can move on in the game without any optional battles. So it turns out that even on 0 DVs, Crobat is pretty good, and it can manage to get through the first gym without any major issues. Now, of course, I don't expect this Pokemon to have too much trouble as we go into the next section because we're not going to be weak against Bug. So the real issue is just going to be rival number 2's Quilava, which I don't think is going to be that tough. I could be wrong though, so let's get into this and find out. I will, however, be adding on the move Swift here. It's one of our few moves that we can actually learn, and I think this move is too useful to pass up. So of course, we're going to go pay a Halloween visit to Kurt, and he's going to run away from us and fall down a well. Scary, scary, down here in the dark, but we're just going to go ahead and beat up on all these rockets. I don't expect them to be a problem. But in fact, we get knocked out by the first rocket grunt down here just because we weren't quite survivable enough. So that's going to make me lean a little bit more towards using some confusion strats on these Pokemon, as well as trying to go for the Screech on them. Unfortunately, they know Quick Attack, and that's the real issue here. So this time we get much better ranges on the Rattatas though, so 3 attempts to get through that first rocket grunt. But now we can move on to the rest of the team here, where I don't think they're going to be nearly as hard because they're not using Quick Attack and Tail Whip against us. And sure enough, after that, we make it easily to Jamesy Proton, where we're just going to spam the move Swift over and over again until we finally knock him out. And with that, we get a level up to level 12 and we get to learn Bite. Now, Bite obviously is a great move to add to our moveset. I'm actually going to learn it over Leech Life. I mean, I know Leech Life, it's, heals damage in battle, but it's an incredibly weak move and we don't have a same type attack bonus, so I think Bite is the actual strategy here. Is that a strategy mistake? Tell me down in the comments. But for now, we're going to make our way now into Bugsy's gym, where I think we have a pretty good advantage. We're really fast, we know Bite, we have confusion strats, this should work out. And after making very quick work of the lesser trainers, we are now ready to take on Bugsy himself. We have a level 13 Crobat with 46 HP, Swift, Bite, Supersonic, and Screech on the moveset. We're coming in now with 29 attack, 26 defense, 23 special attack, 26 special defense, and 39 speed. Let's just see if we beat up Bugsy even on 0 DVs. Of course, he's going to lead off with his Metapod. I'm going to try to confuse this Pokemon. Of course, after he uses Harden, we're just going to bite him repeatedly, going for the flinches. It's a 3-hit KO to knock that one out. Kakuna's out next. It can basically do nothing because we're not scared of Poison Sting. And we easily knock that one out too. We get to level 14 as the Scyther comes out. Now I really do think we have to confuse this Pokemon to stop it from building up Fury Cutter. I'm also going to Screech at it and now go into Swift. Of course, he can Quick Attack here. That will do decent damage, and he knocks us out on the first attempt. But we could have gotten him with just one more hit, so I think we've got this one where we can get it to go. So back to the Scyther on the next attempt. He's going for quick attack against us, but we can confuse him as he starts his Fury Cutter buildup. We're going to Screech at him now, and now I'm just going into the Swift. And since we outspeed as he uses Fury Cutter, it doesn't matter. We easily get through on the second attempt and get to level 15. So really that one comes down to just not missing things. Of course, Screech is not perfectly accurate. Supersonic is basically a coin flip every time, but if you actually land the moves, you can get through that one really easily. But now we've got to take on rival number 2. And of course, he's going to talk trash as he sends out his Ghastly, and we're just going to bite this Pokemon and take it down in one hit. Out next is the Zubat. We're going to try to confuse this Pokemon, and as we can see, Supersonic refuses to hit, but it does finally hit itself in confusion, and after that, this is looking like a 2-hit KO, so easy victory right there. Quilava is out last. Of course, it could go for some accuracy strats on us, but I'm not too worried about that, obviously, because we know the move Swift, but here I'm gonna go for some paralysis with the confusion. We get burned by this Pokemon, but he does flinch, and that allows us to survive on 1 HP, getting to level 16, and we have moved on through Rival 2 on the first attempt. So that was certainly pretty darn lucky, but we managed to get through, and we are still on minimum battles as we go into the Whitney section. Now, of course, we are currently working on the Whitney Minimum Battles series, and many of you will know that so far she hasn't really been a challenge. But one of the things that I've been saying over and over again is that a big part of why I think we're doing so well against her is because we're running those Pokemon on max DVs. Obviously, you're going to have much higher stats with those Pokemon than you would have with one of these that's running on 0 DVs, which is the reason why I think we're getting through without much difficulty. But honestly, if we're just faster than the Miltank, which we're already in a speed tie at our current level, that would mean that in theory, at least, we should be able to get through this fight just through flinch and confusion strats. Still, I will take the underground trainers since they're basically free eats, and they're going to be required later in the game anyway, just to gain at least a level before I go into the gym leader, and that will guarantee that we will in fact be faster than that Miltank. I also come down here so that I can get the coin case that's going to allow me to get access to an Abra and a Machop that I will use later on in the run. But with that, I think we're ready to just go in the gym and take our first attempt here, starting with Scary Carry and her Snubble, where I think we can just bite that Pokemon down. Let's see how it goes. And it turns out that it's just a 4-hit KO with Bite. She charmed us a bunch, but obviously that didn't matter to us, and we easily get through. So now it's time to take on Whitney with Morgan the Crobat. I think maybe somebody's been playing some Dragon Age or something, because that's the name that Marbleous requested from me. But we're coming in with a level 17 Crobat now with 57 HP. Swift, Bite, Supersonic, and Screech is our moveset. We have 37 attack, 33 defense, 30 special attack, 33 special defense, and 50 speed. So we're even on 0 DVs. We're going to outspeed the Miltank. Makes sense. We've got 130 base speed, but still, let's just see if this is enough to survive those rollouts. So first attempt here, we are going to simply go all in on the attack against this Clefairy. Swift is our strongest move. It tried to guillotine us, and now it used Minimize, but we're perfectly fine with that because of course Swift will always hit, and we knock it out in 4 turns. Out next is the Miltank. I'm going to try to confuse the cow, and with no Baryon, we were knocked out in 3 turns because we couldn't land a single Supersonic. So I think the obvious play here is to actually use the Gold Berry that is on our Machop here, but really what we need is flinches and confusion. So next attempt, we are back to the Miltank. I accidentally used Swift turn 1. It did 10 damage here, and we get a heal with the Gold Berry, but now we're going to confuse the cow. It hits itself in confusion. We can go into bite strats here in order to flinch this Pokemon as well, and unfortunately, it just manages to knock us out with 10 HP remaining, so one more hit or a critical hit will get us through this one. So this time we confuse the cow turn 1. I'm going to use a Screech to reduce its defense, and now I'm going into Swift, and sure, it can stomp me, but without a critical hit, it hits itself in confusion, and just like that, we do manage to get through. So it took a few attempts there on Whitney, certainly wasn't consistent, but it is possible, and that kind of gives us a preview of how this Pokemon's going to do. Clearly, it's going to be able to beat Whitney on minimum battles with max DVs if we just did it on 0 DVs. And with that out of the way, we'll simply pick up Kenya the Spearow to have our Fly HM user. We may end up just using Fly on this Pokemon, of course, but we'll have it there just in case. And now we can simply squirt the wood here and we can get straight through this section. I'm just going to run away from Sudowoodo. There's no reason to fight that Pokemon. So instead, we'll just make our way up to Ecruteak, where the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to fight the Kimono Girls. And I'm even going to use this as a little bit of a chance to scout out this section for the next part of our Minimum Battles series, just to see what is and isn't available at this point. But it all starts with the Kimono Girls, where we're going to just take them on one by one. I think our Pokemon's going to be more than strong enough, even though we're only one level higher. It's not like these evolutions are that strong against us. And here at level 9, we even get to learn Confuse Ray, which I'm going to learn over Supersonic. It is a massive upgrade since it's 100% accurate. No more 50-50 flips to try to confuse our opponents. Unfortunately, we get through all the Kimono Girls without any real issues. We nearly lost to the Espeon once, but we survived. So we get through that whole section nice and easy. And of course, we can take this opportunity to even come over by the Lake of Rage, where we can obviously pick up more items, including what everybody loves, of course, Hidden Power. Now, in this run, we're on 0 DVs, so Hidden Power is just a 31 base power fighting type move. I don't think it's going to do that much for us. We also have Detect that we picked up over here, though. Theoretically, it could be useful in some situations. I'm not sure if we're going to go Detect strats, though. However, we will pick up one rare candy while we're over here, and funny enough, none of the trainers over in this section are required at all. Now, we can't actually reach to the red Gyarados yet, so we're just going to have to simply backtrack from here, but we got a bunch of items, and the area is discovered, so we can fly back later. Now, the other place, of course, where we can go at this point is we can actually make our way over to Olivine. Now, this route is very important because you can get a mint berry right here, which could be very, very useful. But the other situation is that here there are two trainers standing right near me. They are both Poke fans with a single Pikachu at the exact same level. The issue here is that they were moved in Pokemon Crystal from their positions in Pokemon Gold and Silver. In Gold and Silver, if you went past these two trainers, you could not backtrack. However, in Pokemon Crystal, you can, while still staying on Minimum Battles, because even if you come all the way over here against the gate, we're going to see that that trainer will see us, so we would have to fight that trainer no matter what, whereas if we go right here, this guy's going to see us. The difference is if we fight this guy, we can actually backtrack without fighting an extra battle, whereas if we skip this guy and fight the female trainer instead, then we would have to fight this guy on our way back if we didn't teleport to get back to Ecruteak City. So I'm going to fight this guy because he is a required trainer, and let's just go ahead and get the easy win here. He does paralyze us and use a berry, but double team strats don't matter when we're using Swift, so we easily get through that one. Now over here, we just have to be careful not to fight this guy, but he is of course skippable. We can simply walk past him and just skip right here to go all the way back to Ecruteak City with no additional battles. Of course, our rival's just going to run away from us once. He's going to run back to Ecruteak. We'll go take care of him in a second, but for now, I'm just going to see what else is available. Of course, we can get access to Strength at this point in the game, and I skipped Rock Smash, but of course, Rock Smashing is a thing. But I think most importantly, we can actually come into the lighthouse and get access to a couple more fights against these trainers that are required to reach the top. So essentially, we have to fight the two gentlemen that are in here, though we shouldn't really have too much trouble with these Pokemon. The issue, of course, is that they can roar at us and cause us to bring out one of our other Pokemon, so we need to go put the other Pokemon in the PC. Because now, fortunately, without any other party members, if they do use roar against us, we're not going to have to worry about it. We're easily getting through these fights. And now what we have to do is we have to route to the left, where we're going to fight against this trainer with her Meryl, and that is the last required trainer in this section of the game. Because of course we can go to the left side here as we fall down, which will avoid this trainer while we can still grab an ether. We can pop right up here and just walk past that guy, and we have made it to Jasmine at the top of the tower, where she's going to tell us all about her little Ampharos. And of course, by simply falling down the holes here, we can come and get the other rare candy that is available right here as we move on. And now, of course, back to Ecruteak. One of the things that we're going to see is that Morty, the gym leader, is absent in Pokemon Crystal. You actually do have to go to the burned tower before you can take him on, which is why Rival 3 is actually required in this version of the game. We can even pop over here and just see him saying that he has to study about the legendary dogs, so we're just gonna have to take on this fight with our rival first. Now, I expected this fight in our minimum battle series to be incredibly difficult because of the fact that he leads off with a Haunter. So here against this Haunter, we can see its moveset is Lick, Spite, Mean Look, and Curse. A lot of times this Pokemon's simply going to go Curse on its opponents, basically trying to put them on a timer for the rest of the battle. So I want to see if Bite is enough here, and it is not. So he curses, and that means we are now on a timer. So of course, against the Magnemite, we don't have anything really strong, and Curse is going to just start eating away at our HP. We even get paralyzed here, and Thundershock being super effective guarantees that we simply lose at that point. So what I think we need to happen here is to get a flinch from Bite. That is the obvious way that we would be able to get through this, because we are faster than the Haunter, and once it flinches just like that, we're guaranteed to knock it out the next turn, and that keeps us from getting cursed. Now we can go into Confuse Ray strats, and I'm going to still use Screech on this Pokemon as well, basically hoping that between Confusion plus hopefully getting it to hit itself, which it just refuses to do, eventually we can knock it out, but we've got no HP going into the next Pokemon, so this is going to be another one where we lose 2 times in a row. This time we do manage to get through with much better health on that Magnemite, but you can see it's been 7 attempts so far. Now on the Zubat, it's just a simple 2-hit KO with Swift, however, and out comes Quilava. I'm going to confuse this Pokemon. He can smokescreen all he wants because we know Swift will do the job here. It looks to be 3-hit KO after he hits himself in confusion, so we can get through and get to level 24. Now, of course, we're just going to see the dogs run away from us, and this guy's going to come and say, "Oh my god, you saw Suicune!" And we're just going to let him run out of here. And now it's time to make our way to Morty's gym. Now, we have a very clear strategy in Morty's gym. We just spam Bite, but we're really going to be hoping for some flinches in certain situations in order to try to get through. Now, as far as I know, one of these trainers in here is skippable, but the rest we do have to fight. So starting with this guy right here, there's no choice. We just have to fight him as we enter. He's going to come out with the Ghastly. Bite is just one-shotting these Pokemon, so I think we're getting through this one all the time, and we get to level 25. Now, standing in this position, we should be able to go to the left, and that allows us to bypass that channeler that's all the way on the right, the first one, so we can come and fight this guy instead. Here he's got a single Haunter. We're simply going to bite this Pokemon. He uses Spite, but that's perfectly fine with us. Jeffrey never had a chance. Now we can come over here. We have to fight one more trainer in order to reach the gym leader. Leads off with a Ghastly. That's an easy bite. The Haunter flinches, so it doesn't get the chance to curse us, and the final Ghastly is another 1-hit KO. So easy peasy to get through to Morty, but now the question is, can we beat the gym leader himself? We are coming in now with a level 26 Golbat on minimum battles with 83 HP, Swift, Bite, Confuse Ray, and Screech on the moveset. We've got 55 attack, 49 defense, 45 special attack, 50 special defense, and 76 speed. So I think we're going to outspeed everything here. I'm not sure about the Gengar, but I'm guessing we're going to outspeed it. And so then it's just a question of whether or not Bite can knock everything out. Let's try. So of course, Morty's going to lead off with a level 21 Ghastly. Bite does get the 1-hit KO. Out next is a level 21 Haunter, which also goes down. It was a critical hit, but we did manage to beat it in a single hit. Out next is the Gengar. This one's looking like a 3-hit KO, but then we crit again, so that is a 2-hitter, and the final Haunter comes out, it flinches, and we easily win on the first attempt with no damage taken as we get to level 27. So that was great. That was exactly what we wanted to see from this Pokemon. It gets through that section with no problems. And now, of course, we can simply teach a Pokemon to surf, and we can go wherever we want to go. And I'm going to start off by actually going to the Lake of Rage. The reason is because I want to at least try the rocket hideout over here. Now, it is worth noting that we do have to deal with this Gyarados here, and I am going to catch it because it's going to be a waterfall and whirlpool user later on in the run. And on minimum battles, we cannot knock a Pokemon out unless it's absolutely necessary. This is one that we do not have to knock out. And on the second attempt, we do in fact manage to catch that Pokemon. We can come and talk to Lancey Boy, and just like that, we're ready to make our way down to that rocket hideout. So here, of course, Lance is just going to start doing his thing. So now we can go into the underground where we, of course, have Bite, which should do pretty well here. And when we see a Zubat, we'll just go Swift. We should be able to get through these rocket grunts pretty darn easily. Now, of course, we have to fight the first couple rockets that pop up right when we come into the underground. But then we're going to come over, we're going to turn off the PC right here. That will save us a few battles that otherwise we would have to take in this section. Though this isn't necessarily a super easy fight here, given the fact that these are Magnemites that know the move Thundershock, so we do have to get a little bit of luck here. And in fact, this guy's turning out to be a bit of a wall. So while I know that the reputation of this game is that it's super easy to be able to get through this section with these Team Rocket members, that's not always the case. There are certainly Pokemon for whom this fight and some fight in this section could actually turn out to be much harder than simply going to the next gym. So this is honestly our best attempt at the final Magnemite. We managed to get through the other two without too much damage, but still 2 Thundershocks is going to be enough to knock us out here. He's not hitting himself in confusion, so we simply lose on that attempt. And of course, because I saved right beside Jed here, we can't actually go back because we would have to give up on minimum battles. Because if we re-enter this area, we would have to refight those rockets that are going to pop up next to the statue. Of course, if you didn't care about minimum battles, you could simply just make your way through at this point without too much difficulty. But for me, I actually do care about it, so I'm going to sit here and grind to try to get through this fight. And there we have it. After 11 attempts, we finally managed to beat that trainer. We can turn off the rando guys popping up next to the statues on us, and we can move on in this section. So now we'll just keep progressing on minimum battles, of course, and just keep going to see how far we can get. I don't expect most of these other trainers down here to be that challenging for this Crobat. It was really just that trainer with multiple Magnemites that could cause us serious issues. That does make me really scared of Jasmine later on though. So of course we will fight the 2 required trainers to get the passwords. And I'm just picking up items because I can. We'll probably end up selling most of these for money because we don't actually need them. I'm not going to use any vitamins in these runs, same as my Gen 1 solo runs, just because, again, I like to run on the minimal settings. And let's just see if we can get through most of this. It may be that on max DVs and with vitamins, you'd be doing much better than we're doing here. And here, of course, we can pick up the TM for Thief if we ever wanted to use it. I don't plan to use it at this point, but it could be useful in a situation where you wanted to steal an item from something. Instead, we will come and take on the Executive right here. And against this guy, he's going to lead off with a Zubat. We're just going to use Swift on this and get a 1-hit KO. Out next, the Raticate. I'm simply going to continue with my Swift spam. We didn't quite get the 2-hitter, but we do get a 3-hitter there. Finally, he's got a Coughing. I'm going to bite his Coughing, and it's a 2-hit KO. Easy victory as we get through, and we can talk to Murkrow. So now we'll just take on the final battle in this section of the game. Of course, Lance is going to come and fight some dude, and we're going to take on the female Rocket here. Against the Arbok, I'm simply going to bite this Pokemon. It raps. We don't really care. We're not into hip-hop, so we easily get through that Pokemon. Out next, Murkrow. I'm simply going to use Swift a couple times on this one. It just barely misses being a 2-hitter, but we do get through. We get a level up and learn Wing Attack. I'm going to learn Wing Attack over Swift. Basically, anything that resists Wing Attack basically would resist Swift too, but we've then got Bite to take care of those Pokemon, except for the Steel types, which we just don't really have anything good. But Wing Attack here will make quick work of the Gloom, and we easily progress through that section. And now in this section, I'm going to catch the Electrodes because I have to avoid taking optional battles and I can't knock them out. If they explode, we simply have to reset. This will be my same approach in the minimum battles series, of course. I will not allow myself to get XP from these Pokemon. And with those Pokemon finally caught, we can get through the section and move on in the game. So now I'm going to make my way down to Chucky Boy because I think that is the natural best way to progress. Of course, we could fight Price right here, but we are weak against ice, whereas against Chuck, we're not weak against fighting. I think we'll do reasonably well in his gym. Now, fortunately, all of these swimmers are skippable, so we can simply make our way straight on down, and after a quick save, it's time to go into the gym. Here, however, we have gotten access to the move Wing Attack, which is super effective against fighting type, so we're easily going to one-shot that first Hitmonlee. Should be more of the same, I think, on Hitmonchan, and I think we're going to make pretty quick work making our way to Chucky Boy. And in fact, everything up to this point is simply a one-hit KO, so now it's time to take on Chuck himself. With our Golbat, we're coming in at level 31 with 98 HP. We have Wing Attack, Bite, Confuse Ray, and Screech on the moveset, 66 attack, 59 defense, 53 special attack, 60 special defense, and 91 speed. You'll notice my stats on the left side are a little bit higher. That's because they include badge boosts, which we have a couple. We already have a badge boost in attack and speed here. Let's just see if we can knock out Chuck real quick with our wing attacks. So Chuck attempt number 1 here against his Primeape. We're just going to go ahead and wing attack and one-shot it. We get to level 32 as Poliwrath comes out. I'm going to go for the same wing attack. He goes for Mind Reader, but a second wing attack finishes him off, and it was never in question. We were always going to win that fight. So while we're here, we'll talk to Jasmine's dealer and get the secret potion, and we'll get access to Fly while we're here as well. And it's time to just fly back to Olivine City. And of course, while Fly is learnable by our Golbat, I'm going to just teach it to Kenya for now because it's not an easy move to forget if we ever did want to forget it. I'm not sure why we would want to forget it, but you know, it's better to be safe than sorry. And we can give Jasmine that special concoction that she's been waiting for, and now theoretically we can go and fight her in her gym. I'm not sure we want to. She's going to lead off with a couple Magnemites that we really don't have anything good to use against them. So I think our best bet is actually to go and try to take on Price. So coming into Price's gym, of course, we have to dodge one trainer here twice, but we can make it to the gym leader, and I'm going to just try him at least once here. We are now coming in with a level 32 Golbat with 101 HP. Wing Attack, Bite, Confuse Ray, and Screech is our moveset, and we have 68 attack, 61 defense, 66 special attack, 61 special defense, and 94 speed. I'm just going to see if this turns out to be enough. So first things first, he's going to lead off with a Seal. I'm going to simply confuse this Pokemon first. It hits itself in confusion, which is just what we wanted to see. And now Wing Attack isn't a one-hitter, but we are going to take him out in 2 turns. Out next is the Dugong. We're going to confuse this Pokemon. It hits itself in confusion. I'm going to Screech it once. Aurora Beam is going to do pretty decent damage here, but fortunately with the Screech, it's going to be just a 2-hitter to knock that Pokemon out. Finally, out comes the Piloswine. We have to put this Pokemon under confusion, Screech it, hope that it hits itself again. It does. And just like that, we beat Price on the first attempt. So yeah, Crobat, it definitely wasn't going to be consistent there. Like, we were going to certainly lose some percentage of the time in that fight, but we managed to get it to go because Price is just kind of Price. But with that being done, now we have a really major issue in front of us. On minimum battles, the only trainer that we can fight now is Jasmine. And Jasmine has like the worst moveset for us to have to go up against. Wing Attack obviously isn't going to be good here, and the real issue is that there's no move relearner in this version. Like, if we could simply forget one of our moves and then relearn it later, I would feel pretty good about that being the strategy. But here with Wing Attack, Bite, Confuse Ray, and Screech, they're all pretty decent moves that we would want. And the only move that we could learn that would be super effective here would be our 31 base power hidden power fighting. Of course, it would be double power here, so it would be effectively 60 base power, but 60 base power is also the power of Bite. But it's not like that's a guaranteed strategy to get through here. Otherwise, we could go for like attract strategies maybe. I'm not sure the gender of her Pokemon though. As a female Pokemon going into this, we might just not be able to use that move, but let's test this out. Let's just see. So as we come into the gym leader, we are at level 33 with 104 HP, the same moveset as before, but our stats just go up incrementally as we keep gaining levels. We now have 70 attacks, 63 defense, 57 special attacks, 64 special defense, and 97 speed. And we can see that we have a badge boost in special as well as attack. So everything is a little bit stronger. We're just going to have to see if it's enough though. So Jasmine attempt number 1 right here. I'm going to attempt to confuse her Magnemite, but Thunderbolt does just absolutely huge amounts of damage, and we get 2-shot by the first Pokemon. So I think we have to learn a different move. I just don't see any way we're going to get the luck, at least anytime soon, to try to get through this. I have, of course, picked up a return, but I mean, most of these TMs we aren't even able to learn. We could replace Wing Attack with Fly later on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try using Hidden Power just for this battle, and I'm going to replace Wing Attack. With this move, it would effectively be a stronger move, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough. So here, Hidden Power does about half to this first Magnemite, and we are able to 2-shot it then. So now I'm going to confuse the second Magnemite. It goes Thunder Wave, but now I'm going to try to Screech into Hidden Power, and that should enable us to one-shot this Pokemon if we actually landed the hit. We didn't get the hit that time, so we're going to have to take a reset. But this does look a little more reasonable with Hidden Power on the moveset. And here I think the best thing to do is to give a Paralyzed Cure Berry just so that we can avoid paralysis midway through the fight. Let's just see if that turns out to be enough. So this time we managed to get to Steelix on full health. I'm going to Confuse Ray this Pokemon, now go for Screech in order to lower its defense, and into Hidden Power. Oh, Hidden Power does like nothing here. And Iron Tail does massive damage with a critical hit, so we lose that attempt. But still, we managed to get to the Steelix, so this makes me feel like this strategy will work eventually. Back to Steelix on full health again, but it screeched us, so we're gonna take massive damage from Iron Tail, and we have to basically set up all the screeches to have any shot of getting through that. So here, 29 attempts in, we get it all the way down to red health, and it hits itself in confusion, so nearly 30 attempts to beat Jasmine on minimum battles here. We get to level 34, and with that, we have managed to beat all of these gyms on minimum battles with a 0 DVs Crobat. The last one against Jasmine is definitely not reasonable. You're basically going for the Hidden Power fighting, which we wouldn't even have in max DVs, and you know, I wouldn't consider that to be a consistent strategy by any means. And even still, you're basically hoping for one Thunder Wave miss and one Thunder Wave that you can heal up with the Paralyzed Cure Berry, and even then, you have to get incredibly lucky on the Steelix to get through with Confusion luck, setting up Screech, and knocking it out with Hidden Power fighting that's only 31 base power. So definitely not my advised way of getting through this. But for now, we have gotten through, and I'm going to replace Hidden Power fighting immediately with our best same type move, which is Fly. So now we just have to go through the incredibly tedious section that is the Rocket storyline here. I'm not sure how we're actually going to do in this section though. Let's just see how it goes on minimum battles. So I'm going to skip all of the rockets that I can, of course, but for those that I can't skip, we're simply going to fight them and get a bunch of levels. Now, of course, there are some spots like here on the second floor where you could fight this guy or you could fight this guy. I found this guy gives less XP, which is why I fight him. So fortunately, the more direct route is the more reasonable route as you get through this section. And so we easily get to the top of the radio tower to take on the first of the executives here. Now, this guy also could be a trouble for some Pokemon because he uses self-destruct with all of his coughings and he's got a massive team. I'm simply going to spam Bite here and hope that it is enough. Fortunately, he does attack randomly, so he's not going to just use smart moves and take us out easily. Still, I'm going to confuse this Weezing, and I'm even going to go Fly strats here to give him more of a chance to use self-destruct while we're in the sky. I think he's smart enough not to do that, but still, we will take that as an opportunity to hopefully get through. Fortunately, we don't get any self-destruct nonsense here. We don't get, smoke screened into oblivion. So we managed to get through this section of the game, and now we can go into the basement. And that, of course, means that it is time to take on rival number 4, Let's see how this guy goes though. So of course he's going to lead off with his Golbat. I'm simply going to use Fly here and let's see how much damage we do. We did about half as he confuses us with Confuse Ray, and we hit ourselves in confusion there. So obviously the bad confusion luck means that this first attempt is basically going to be a fail. I don't see any way we get through from here, so we're just going to have to try this one again, unless we get God tier flinch luck, which doesn't work out. But now that we know the ranges, I'm simply going to confuse him instead, and now I will be the one to fly up in the sky and easily knock him out, but he still manages to confuse me. No. Still, we do take him down faster this time. I'm going to stick with the Bite strats here on the Magnemite, and it turns out to be a 4-hit KO. Out next is Haunter. Bite does not get a 1-hitter, but it does flinch that Pokemon. Sneasel is out next. I'm simply going to fly on this Pokemon and then bite it the next turn. It even takes 3 turns to knock out. Finally, Quilava, Confuse Ray. We're just hoping not to take any major damage here from Flame Wheel, and we knock it out just like that. So just like that, we were able to beat the rival. Took a couple attempts, but really not too bad. And here as we finish off the required rockets in the underground, we can see we're getting up to level 40 at this point, even with a medium fast level up Pokemon, and Fly lets us just let some of these Pokemon explode and just kill themselves. So this whole section really wasn't that hard. As we reach the Radio Tower Director, we can get the card key and we'll pick up the TM. I forget what TMs are here. That gives us access to Sleep Talk, which we certainly won't be using right now, but it could, I guess, be a strategy later on. So now we'll simply use the card key. Let's take on the last few of these rockets that are required here and try to get through this section. Obviously, every Pokemon is going to gain lots of levels here if it can manage a way to get through all these fights. Something like Dig will be really good in this section if a Pokemon gets it. Now we have the chance to learn Mean Look here. I'm not going to learn that move. I don't think we need it. I don't think there's ever going to be a situation where our strategy is lower the opponent's speed. Speed is not really the issue here. So instead I will come and fight the final executive here, and let's just see how this actually goes. So obviously I'm going to fly against the Houndour. That gets an easy 1-hit KO. Coughing is out next. This one does not know the move Self-Destruct, so we can't go for that strategy. But here then on the final Houndoom, I'm going to confuse this Pokemon, and now I'm just going to start flying. And fortunately that does more than enough damage that we managed to get through. So of course now we can get access to Sunny Day. We can, come into this section and just do all kinds of stuff. This is where I will finally actually get the radio card in this one. And with that, we are finally ready to move on to Blackthorn and try to take on Claire. Of course, the guy who was blocking this route before is no longer here, so we can simply bypass that section. And as far as I remember, there aren't really any required trainers over here. And of course, all of these trainers on this route are skippable, so there are no required battles to make our way to Blackthorn City. And now successfully in Blackthorn City, we can simply move on to the gym, and it's time just to see if our Crobat is strong enough to get through every gym in Johto on minimum battles with 0 DVs. So of course, this guy right here is the skippable trainer in this gym. Everything else, as far as I know, we have to fight. So we're taking them all on, but really not too much trouble up to this point. Fly is pretty darn strong in the hands of a Crobat, given that we're primarily a physical attacker. We've got a badge boost in this move, and it's the same type move. So here we get paralyzed, but still we just bite that Pokemon down. That does show us what could be the issue here, though, is paralysis. So I'm going to pop out once and heal up, and we're going to have to review our items here because we might need a Paralyzed Cure Berry. Still, I don't know the location of a Paralyzed Cure Berry right off the top of my head, so I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to try to take this fight as I am. Let's just see how it actually goes. But before we attempt this, let's check the stats. We're currently at level 43 with 135 HP, Fly, Bite, Confuse Ray, and Screech on the moveset. And we're here with 92 attack, 84 defense, 75 special attack, 84 special defense, and 127 speed. So I think we're faster than everything. This might come down to confusion luck, getting some misses from Thunderwave. We'll just have to see. So Claire attempt number 1. I'm going to use Fly on the Dragonair. It doesn't quite do half, but we can bite this Pokemon. Bite did even less though, so clearly flinch strats are not the way to go. And the second Dragonair knows Thunderbolt, which is probably the end of this run. Now, it doesn't seem like she only uses Thunder Wave here, though. She can use other moves like Dragon Breath against us. And so that gives me a little bit of hope that we might be able to find a way through here. Still, the second Dragonair especially, I think we have to confuse this Pokemon. We do manage to get through it this time though, and the third Dragonair knows Ice Beam, which is also terrible for our Crobat here because it's going to do massive damage, and we do not quite manage to get through this one. While we do manage to get to Kingdra, we've only got 4 HP left. This Pokemon's going to easily destroy us with a Surf, and we lose just like that. So clearly we have to avoid paralysis. Critical hits can one-shot these Dragonairs though. And keep in mind there is also a 25% chance for Thunder Wave to miss against us. Now I wish that we could learn the move Sludge Bomb with this Pokemon. It would be a nice way to boost our power, but unfortunately it's not learnable by Crobat, which is kind of a shame. The fact that they added a strong poison move as a TM, and yet this Pokemon simply can't get what would be one of its best same type attacking moves. So instead, I guess we're just going to have to go for kind of confusion and, maybe flinch strats here to try to get through this. But this is certainly going to take quite a few attempts. So after trying quite a few times, I went out and got a Paralyzed Cure Berry finally on Route 46, so now we can come back and try this one properly. Now what I've found is that if I confuse my opponent and the Dragonair hits itself once and then I bite and get a flinch, I can knock it out from this range with a Fly. Now obviously we missed the Fly there, that's only a 5% chance, and we miss it again, that's just terrible luck. We have to reset just because of that. But still, it does give us a potential way to get through these Dragonairs without taking too many Thunder Waves. So we finally manage a run where we get to the Kingdra on full health with no paralysis. And now I think our strategy is simply to confuse it, to use some screeches on it, and then we're going to go into our Fly here, and we managed to knock it out just like that. So it took about 30 attempts to get through Claire there. Definitely going in with the Paralyzed Cure Berry helped a lot, but still, I mean, a lot of it comes down to luck of just not missing moves, getting some Thunder Waves to miss, etc. But ultimately, it can work out. And so now, of course, Claire will get told by the old guys, give me my badge. Still don't understand why half of Johto tries not to give you their badge after you beat them, but we get through that section. It's time to move on to the Elite Four. But of course, before we do, I'm going to pick up some items that are available in this section of the game, and let's just see how we progress from there. So now for the first time, we are crossing into Kanto. Of course, we have to try to avoid that trainer right there. So this time we do manage to just get straight past that trainer and we can move on. And that means that really over here there aren't that many required trainers in this section because most of these we can simply surf to get past, or they're just a matter of routing to the edges of the area. So as far as I know, this is the only required trainer in this section. She cannot be bypassed. So we simply have to go ahead and fight against her Rapidash, but we easily destroy it and get to level 45. And now it's on to the Victory Road, which isn't really much of anything in this version of the game. Obviously, there are just a bunch of items laying around. I'm not sure which ones I need and which I don't, so I'm just going to grab a bunch here. And then we can simply make our way to the rival number 5 fight. So here, rival number 5, let's just see how he goes as we enter the league. He's going to lead off with his Sneasel that's only at level 34. I'm just going to use Fly here and get an easy one-hit KO. Magneton is out second. I'm going to confuse this Pokemon. And now I have really nothing better than Bite here. So unfortunately, this Pokemon with this Thundershock is just doing way too much damage and we're going to lose this attempt. So this time we do manage to get through, but we are confused. We can one-shot Kadabra, fortunately. Golbat is out next, and unfortunately Future Sight comes in and Wing Attack, and we get knocked out. So really the issue here is we have no solution for the Magneton. Everything else I think we would get through incredibly easily. It's just this Pokemon is kind of a wall. However, this time we get it to hit itself in confusion 3 times in a row as we set up a bunch of screeches, and we do manage to knock it out on full health. Now Bite is going to be a 2-hit KO on the Kadabra. Against the Golbat, I'm just going to stick with Bite here and then go into Fly. It's not quite a 2-hit KO there, so we do end up taking some additional damage before we can knock this one out. And he actually gets 3 turns where we hit ourselves in confusion, so we lose that attempt. That was like the best luck too. So this time is our first attempt at the Haunter here. It goes Curse, of course, which means that we immediately are going to get knocked out here by the fact that even if Typhlosion didn't hit us, Curse was going to take us out there. The entire strategy is simply having to confuse this Pokemon and hope that it hits itself enough times as we use Screech on it. And if we can get lucky like that and get a Thunder Wave miss, that's always very good for us. Here we get really good luck, and we actually managed to knock it out on full health. Kadabra comes out next. I'm going to simply bite this Pokemon, get a flinch. Whoa, this might be the luck that we've been waiting for. We're getting like crazy flinches here. We knock out Golbat, still on really good health. Haunter's out. It hits us with a Shadow Ball, so no Curse this time. Onto the Typhlosion. I'm going to confuse this Pokemon as it goes for its Flame Wheel. And now I'm going Fly here. Did over half. Now we do get burned, which sucks, but we managed to knock it out and get to level 46. So yeah, we ended up not using any rare candies there because they made no difference. And we have made it to the league. It took a small eternity to get through that fight, but we are here. So of course, I'm going to take this opportunity to just buy a bunch of full restores. And now because we don't know exactly how long we're going to be here, I'm just going to buy tons and tons of full restores here. There's nothing else that we're going to spend money on. We're not going to like go and get access to vitamins or anything like that. Clearly we could get a lot of them, but that's not the way we're going to do this run. We're going to stay on kind of the minimum battles, and let's just see if we can take down any members of the Elite Four at our current level, starting with Willy Boy. So here against Will, of course, we know Bite, which should be super effective against the whole team. We can get flinches with this move. Jinx is out next. We don't really want to get hit by ice or psychic type moves, and we really don't like the Fly miss here. Obviously, we lost that one just due to a miss and then getting knocked out by the psychics. So here, basically, we need to confuse this Slowbro, I think, and now go into Bite. And when he uses Curse, of course, that's going to encourage us even more to use Bite here. So we get through without any damage that time. Xatu is out next. And here against this Pokemon, he does confuse us, but we're going to stick with Bite here, hoping for the flinch. He gets a really strong Psychic on us, but we do knock that Pokemon out. Finally, Exeggutor, I'm going Fly, and we do not get the one-hitter, so we get knocked out. So we needed to go Bite into Fly on that Exeggutor to have the best chance. This whole fight pretty much comes down to trying to get flinches from the looks of it. And then when they do confuse us, that's why we've got the Bitter Berry, so that we can heal up that damage. This time Xatu flinches, and it flinches again. He goes for a max potion on us though, but we do manage to knock it out. Finally, Exeggutor, we're going to bite it once. It goes Leech Seed. We're not scared of its Leech Seed here. It flinches, and just like that, we do manage to beat Will on minimum battles. 0 DVs and minimum battles. We did have to use a very weak hidden power fighting at one point in this, but really, we're not doing that bad. So now it's time to take on Koga. We're not going to have anything good against some of his Pokemon, but we're just going to have to see how it goes. So of course, Ariados is out first. We want to Fly. He's going to go double team. We're just hoping that we don't miss here and that he doesn't baton pass double team to one of his other Pokemon, and he does. And that means that we can't hit anything, and we're basically losing this first attempt, I think. We do manage to one-shot the Venomoth, though, so at least we know that that is a possibility here. And then he just swifts with Fortress to knock us out. Let's try this again. Like, while I expect him to use Double Team with Ariados, still, we should be able to hit a reasonable percentage of the time and knock that Pokemon out. Venomoth comes out second. We're simply going to knock that Pokemon out nice and easy. Fortress is out. I'm going to confuse this Pokemon. Then I'm going to give it a Screech. And now I'm going to go into Fly with its defense lowered. The issue is this Pokemon knows Protect. So we really want him to like hit himself in confusion while we're in the air. But then he explodes and we lose. So there's clearly going to be some issues here in this fight. This time he explodes while we're in the air, so we actually get to Muck on really good health. And we managed to get through Muck. We're to the final Crobat. I am going to confuse this Pokemon. And now we're going Fly strats. And he just manages to knock us out with a wing attack. But this fight is clearly possible if we can just find a way through Fortress. There we once again get it to blow up while we're in midair. We knock out Muck with much better health as we level up to level 48. We confuse his Crobat, back to fly. He's going double team strats here, but we land the flies. So finally we do manage to beat Koga on minimum battles. It seems like it's just kind of random. There's a chance that he will explode on any given turn with his fortress there, and that's enough to get us through. So now I'm just going to restore some HP and PP, and let's get to the Bruno fight. Still on minimum battles with our Crobats. So Bruno attempt number 1, of course, we've got a super effective move against Hitmontop. It uses Detect against us. So I'm going to confuse this Pokemon and hope that he's confused on the turn that he wants to use Detect. So this time we do finally manage to knock that one out. Against the Onix, we're just going to go Bite the whole way. And unfortunately, we're just taking way too much damage here. It turned out to be a 3-hit KO there, and Sandstorm takes us out. So let's try this again. We're going to Confuse Ray on the Hitmontop, hoping that he's confused the turn that we use Fly. He is, so we knock him out. Out comes the Onix. I'm going to confuse this Pokemon first, hoping it hits itself, and now Bite it. And we know that we're going to take it out in a couple turns with Bite here. We just missed the range by 1 HP. Are you kidding me? I think we've got to get through without taking too much damage from that Onix if we're going to win this one. So basically what I'm doing is I'm resetting any time that I don't get the Hitmontop to hit itself in confusion while I'm in the air. So this time we get through the Onix on much better HP, though Sandstorm is still on here. I'm going to fly up in the air and easily knock down the Hitmonchan. Machamp comes out. We're simply going to fly, and it's not quite enough to knock it out, and Rock Slide takes us down. So we get another attempt where we're back to the Hitmonchan. We knock it out. And now against Machamp, I'm going to confuse this Pokemon, hoping that it hits itself. It does not, and it knocks us out. If we can just get one turn where it hits itself in confusion, or maybe a Bite flinch, we should be able to get through that Pokemon. Here on our 20th attempt, we actually get through the Onix without Sandstorm and without taking any Rock Slides. That allows us to knock out the Hitmonchan. We're back to the Machamp, and still it knocks us out easily with its Rock Slide with a critical hit. This time we survive on 12 HP as we confuse the Machamp. It hits itself in confusion twice, and we get through it. So finally we've got Hitmonlee, we fly, and it is a 1-hit KO. So just like that, we did manage to beat Bruno. It was not easy, it was not consistent, but it was possible. And we are now on to Karen on minimum battles. Now this one right here might be a wall, we'll just have to see, but we're going to test it out at least a few times. Obviously we took plenty of attempts against Koga, Will, Bruno. We're going to give plenty of attempts here on Karen as well. So of course she leads off with an Umbreon. We are going to confuse this Pokemon, especially because it's very defensive, and I'm going to Screech at it. We do not want to be sand attacked here. We did really good damage with the first fly after a Screech, and we knock it out on the next turn. Gengar comes out. Of course, this Pokemon knows Curse. We're hoping that we can bite this one down. It flinches. Very nice. Finally, next we get the Murkrow, which is not quite a one-hitter with Fly, but we do manage to two-shot that Pokemon. Houndoom is out next. I'm going to confuse this Pokemon because that Flamethrower is kind of rough, and after a misclick, we simply go down. Still not a bad first attempt. Let's see how this goes as we progress. This time we get Curse from the Gengar, which is like the last thing that we wanted to see, especially using Fly strats. That's just simply not going to work, so we're going to have to reset on that one. So third attempt, we got Cursed, so we knew we were going to lose, but I wanted to see the range on the Houndoom, and one Fly did massive damage here. If we get a critical hit, it will be a one-hit KO, so definitely we can get through this, because the last Pokemon is Vileplume. We just need a run where we're not cursed. So 10th attempt, we get through without Curse to the Murkrow, and still on full health coming into this, so we easily knock out Murkrow there. We're going to go Fly on Houndoom. I'm not even going to mess around here. Flamethrower without a crit will not knock us out, so we get the easy 2-hitter there, get to level 50, Vile Plume comes out, I go fly, and it's not a 1-hitter, it's going to be a 2-hitter here, and she heals with Moonlight and then goes into Petal Dance, and we are paralyzed. That's the main issue here, but then she hits herself in confusion, we manage to get the fly off, and just like that, 10 attempts to beat Karen on minimum battles. So that of course means we've made it all the way to Lance with this Pokemon on minimum battles and 0 DVs. Has it been consistent? No, we're up to 175 resets already. And the real issue is that we're about to come into the Lance fight and we don't have anything good to use here. Like if we had an electric move or an ice move or something, I would feel really good here. No, we have Fly and we have Bite and we have Confuse Ray. So I'm really not sure we're getting through this ever, but hey, what the heck, let's just see how the ranges actually look. So first things first, I think we have to basically confuse everything here. We are going to be using some Confuse Ray and Screech strats. Here we get Thunder Waved, we're going to get Thundered, and I think that's pretty much all she wrote because I misclicked and used the wrong move. We meant to use Confuse Ray turn 1 there, not to go for Screech. So back to that Dragonite, we're going to confuse it this time. Still, it hits a Thunder that does massive, massive damage. Bite does almost nothing, and we easily get knocked out. So this time we get through to the Dragonite with no damage taken though. Still, it manages to Thunder Wave us. We don't have a Paralyzed Cure Berry, so we're just kind of stuck here. You know, in my minimum battles series, I'll allow myself to get items, like extra copies of items, since technically it takes me a couple weeks before I'm back to the same Pokemon anyway. But here in these real-time full game solo runs, obviously it's a big issue when you don't get access to extra berries. For the sake of argument, let's just see what the range is here. Obviously Thunder hit us in the air, so we still took a lot of damage, but we did about a third to this Dragonite with our Fly. So even with a critical hit, it's a 2-hit KO to get through that Pokemon. So this time instead he hits us with Twister while we're in the air and then a Thunder to knock us out. So yeah, it's pretty clear that we've made it all the way to Lance, but this is the point where we basically have cruelly hit a wall. I'm going to go all in on rare candies. I just want to see if we can manage to beat Lance on minimum battles. We will not learn the move Haze, but with all the rare candies, we get to level 57 here. Let's just see what that does to our ranges. So first up against the Gyarados, I'm still going to confuse this Pokemon. I'm going to Fly and just see what kind of damage I do. Okay, so this is definitely a 2-hit KO here with Fly at least. Let's see what the range is here on the Dragonite. Still not quite doing half damage here, and it's just spamming away at Thunder Wave, and we do manage to get through that, but then the next one knows Blizzard. So when we're paralyzed, we're definitely just losing this fight. So the issue here is that we are clearly going to have to gain a ton of levels to have any shot in this fight. You can get all the way to Lance on minimum battles. Yes, some of the battles are really inconsistent, but I think this is the point where it just is basically borderline impossible, because consider you would need against this first Gyarados essentially for it to hit itself in confusion a couple times, just like that. And you can knock that one out. Now you come to the next Dragonite. You need this Pokemon to hit itself in confusion a few times. If it paralyzes you, you're basically just done because everything is super effective against you from here. So I would say that it's worth noting that at level 50, where we're at right now, all of our stats would at least be 15 points higher on a max DVs Pokemon. So we should at least acknowledge that we would be quite a bit stronger at level 50 with our max DVs Crobat when we get here on the minimum battles challenge. But even then, I don't think we're going to be strong enough to get through this fight, just because I don't think we're going to have any moves to use here. Like, Return doesn't make any sense because Fly is already effectively stronger. I mean, I guess outside of the fact that it doesn't take the turn to fly into the sky, and then there's really just no other TMs in this section that we can learn. I guess with one exception that is really bad, but I guess it's all that we have left if we're going to stay on minimum battles. And that, my friends, is I think the move Attract. So So the logic here is that by teaching Attract to this Pokemon, I believe all of Lance's Pokemon are male, so we should be able to infatuate them and then confuse them and then fly. And if we get all of that set up, there should be like a really low chance of them doing anything on a given turn. And since we're guaranteed to be faster than everything, we can land the Attract first. I'm not sure exactly what the odds are of them not hitting us on a turn when we use Attract, but this is the best strategy that I can think of at this point in the game. And even still, we've got tons of moves that can hit us while we're in the sky, so we're probably still getting wrecked here. So this time between Attract and Confusion, we managed to get through that first Dragonite with no damage. Now we have to try it on the rest of them though. We get paralyzed here. Blizzard misses, that's nice. Now, of course, we wish we were still faster so that we could actually flinch with our move Bite. And obviously, paralysis is really bad when we're trying to use fly strats. So we're once again not going to be able to get through. So as exciting as all these strategies sound, they simply don't work. Not with anything that would be reasonably consistent. Like, don't get me wrong. Eventually, we'll get so many turns in a row where our opponents are infatuated or they're confused, or as long as we can outspeed them, we can bite them and get a flinch. Like, in theory, there's a set of luck that could happen that would allow us to get through every fight with this strategy, but it's so insanely inconsistent. Like, double team strats are more consistent than this, and we don't have access to that move. I mean, we wish we could be like Koga's Crobat here with Toxic and Double Team, but we don't have that. So unfortunately, this is the point where we've just hit a wall and there's really just nothing to do. So we're gonna start taking optional battles. Finally, at Lance, we're gonna give up on this whole minimum battles thing and just start grinding it out. So it's back to Willy Boy, and we're just going to make our way through the whole team once again until we get back to Lance at a higher level. And here it's pretty clear that a lot of these fights before Lance weren't really consistent by any means. We were relying on a certain level of luck to get through on minimum battles. So we're not even consistently getting through Will, even with the move Bite on our moveset. And this is the real issue of Crobat, is just that it doesn't have a wide enough move pool in the Johto section. Like, in this part of the game, and really just in the game as a whole, it just doesn't learn any really strong moves. If this Pokemon got Sludge Bomb, for example, then at least it would have a decent same type move in its poison typing that would help it out in some fights. Or if it could get a stronger flying type move, or if it could somehow learn, some elemental coverage that was actually useful in this section of the game. But it just doesn't get any of that, so it ends up getting knocked out pretty darn easily by a lot of opponents because it just doesn't have the answers. So while this Pokemon was a really big improvement on Zubat and Golbat, it's still just not really a great Pokemon in the grand scheme of things. So honestly, I'm kind of surprised it got as far as it did on minimum battles in this challenge, which I think speaks more to the effect of held items and just the fact that Johto isn't really that hard in relative terms that this Pokemon has managed to get this far into the game. So here at level 63, we're finally ready to go back into the Lance fight. Obviously, this has not been a very good setup here, but we are back. And let's just see how survivable we actually are. So at this level against the Gyarados, let's see what the damage range looks like with Fly, because we're, 19 levels higher. Still not a one-hitter. We will get the 2-hit range with Bite. Let's see the range on the Dragonite. Here, Fly does over half, so a critical hit Fly could get us a one-hitter here. So we're getting closer. So this time we're to the second Dragonite on full health, but we knocked that one out. We did get paralyzed, however. Aerodactyl's going for Rock Slide, which is an illegal move, and unfortunately we couldn't keep that one from hitting us. So this one's still not going to be consistent enough, I don't think, so we're going to go back to the beginning and refight these trainers. So our next attempt at Lance comes at level 69, which is very nice, but I'm still not very confident that we're getting through at this level. I will save here because I'm running out of PP restoration items, so I'm going to save before I use this max elixir. And with that, let's just try the champion again. Can we beat him at level 69? We do manage to knock out the first Dragonite, only for the second Dragonite to then paralyze us. But once we land the fly, we can see it did really good damage. And we knocked that one out still on decent health. Now we get a rock slide from this Aerodactyl. We're going to confuse it. We're going to try to infatuate it. And it just doesn't work and we lose. But I'm going to take a couple more attempts at this. Because honestly, I think we might be able to get the range now. So a few attempts later, it looks like we're getting through the second Dragonite with no damage, meaning we're on to Aerodactyl without paralysis. Bite here does not quite do half damage, but we are faster. We get a critical hit and knock it out the next turn. Here we're going to go Attract and Confuse Ray on this Charizard. It got a critical hit Flamethrower on us, but we flinch it, and now we're going to use Fly, and Fly missed. Are you kidding me? Plus we get burned. Oh, that is just terrible luck. We got all the way there, and it just would not let us progress. Back to Charizard again. We managed to knock it out. We've made it to level 70 and we're on the final Dragonite. We need the Attract to hit. It goes Outrage and it knocks us out. So this one is still borderline impossible. We can get like God tier luck and get all the way to the end of the fight, and it just doesn't work out at that point. So at this point, I think we just have to give up on this one and go back to the beginning to gain even more levels, as nice as it would have been to win at level 69. Fortunately, at this point, the rest of the Elite Four is pretty much a joke. We can sweep through them, so it's really just Lance that is a hard wall to this Pokemon. So at level 73, we've made it to Aerodactyl, still on full health, and Aerodactyl is now a 2-hit KO range with Bite. We level up to level 74 right there. Now we're going to go Attract on the Charizard, and we get burned. Come on, that was like exactly what we didn't want to see. So at this point, I think we just have to go all in on Bite strats and pray, and we don't get it. Without the burn, I think we had a chance to win there. Many attempts later, we're actually back to Charizard on full health at level 74, and we just have to avoid that burn. That burn was just a killer in that one. But now, if we bite this Pokemon and then we use Fly, we should be able to knock it out. There it goes. Now still on green health to the final Dragonite. We go Attract, and we're going Confuse Ray. Basically just trying to make this Pokemon have almost no chance to actually hit us. It goes Outrage, but we survive. And finally, at level 74, we managed to beat Lance. It still was not consistent there. That was ridiculous. The ranges just weren't very good, and like I said, we didn't really have anything better to add on. Like, what, Return? Like, that's weaker than Fly, so that really wouldn't have done anything for us. But yeah, that was terrible. Thanks, Marvelous Dave. That was absolutely terrible. I will come back and do the post game after this, but it is already like 2 or 3 in the morning here. I gotta go take care of my baby and go to bed. So now that we made our way through the entire Johto section of the game, we can progress to Kanto. So the real thing that we could see from that Johto section was that when you're a speedrunner running this Pokemon, you'd obviously manipulate your DVs to have a really strong hidden power ice. I think at that point you would completely crush the game, because with that move you would be easily able to take out those Dragonites. At least that's what I expect, especially with a higher DVs version of this Pokemon. So really you would have gotten a much better time if you simply had that move, because while using hidden power of ice would certainly have made Jasmine harder, if you're doing a speedrun you would simply take extra battles in order to make Jasmine not that hard. But we did eventually get through with our moveset as it is, and now we can come on to the SS Aqua, and we're going to make our way to Kanto. And here once again, I'm going to stay as close to minimum battles as I can as I go through this. Obviously, it's not going to be possible to beat the game on minimum battles anymore because we've already taken the battles, but still, we'll just avoid as many as we possibly can. And now we simply have to decide how we want to route through Kanto. Technically, Lieutenant Surge might actually be hard for this Pokemon, given that we have a weakness to electric. We saw it over and over again with Lance using Thunder. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to route to some of the other gyms that I think I have an easier chance against. Unfortunately, we didn't use any rare candies in that last section, so we will still have them all available when we get to red at the very end here. But I think our first stop might actually be to go and fight Erika. We have Fly, we're going to be super resistant to grass type moves, so I expect that this fight's going to be incredibly easy, but let's just see if that's actually the case. And we can see that even 25 years later, this guy is still standing outside of the gym peeping at the girls. So we're going to go in and clear it out so that he doesn't spend so much time over here. And of course, basically everything here is just a one-hit KO with Fly, especially since we're already like double the level of all these Pokemon. So we can make it straight to the gym leader with really no issues. Let's see how we do against Erika herself. So of course she leads off with a level 42 Tangela. Fly should one-shot this Pokemon, and it does. Out next is Jump Bluff. We're just going to give it more of that Fly action. We actually missed the Fly here. It's a 5% chance to happen, but an easy KO after that. We get to level 75. Fly on the Blossom. It goes for Sunny Day. Does not matter. And finally, Victory Bell. We're faster. It tries to drop Acid, but we don't deal with Erika and her extracurricular activities. We easily just take her down and move on. But now we have access to Giga Drain, and this move I think is a reasonable improvement for this Pokemon, given that at least in certain spots we may want to be able to simply heal damage off of opponents, and there certainly will be Pokemon that are weak to that move or at least vulnerable to that move as we continue on. So I figure we'll at least come into Sabrina's gym as well, since we know Bite will be super effective against all of her Pokemon. Let's just see how it goes. So Sabrina attempt number 1 here with Bite. We one-shot the Espeon. Out next is Mr. Mime. It also takes a one-hit KO. Alakazam comes out and Bite one-shots it. So it was never in question. We easily win that fight. And with that, we'll simply move on to Lavender Town, where we can go and deal with the tower situation here, where we do have to fight one trainer on the way up north, but this is fewer trainers than if we tried to go to the power plant from Cerulean. And once we get into the rock tunnel, there's nobody to fight in here. Now, for the sake of simplicity, I'm allowing myself to use Flash with my Sentret, even though I did not beat the Sprout Tower here. And this is simply because of the fact that otherwise it would take me a small eternity to make my way through this section. So we'll just simply come to the Cerulean Gym after that and meet this guy. We'll just have to go fight him on the Old Nugget Bridge. And then there's just a ton of easy trainers in this section that we're going to get tons of XP from. But let's get access to Misty, where we can, I think, pretty easily beat her in this section. So after making our way through all of that, we can just come break up a date, because clearly that's what we're all about. And we'll make our way back down to the gym. Unfortunately, we can skip all of the trainers and go straight to Misty herself. So let's just see how we do with our level 76 now Crobat. So here she leads off with a Golduck. I'm simply going to use Fly. As long as we hit, this should be a one-hitter. There, we finally managed to hit it the second time around. Quagsire is pretty defensively bulky, so I'm actually going to go for Bite here. It turns out to be a 2-hit KO. Out next is the Lapras. We're going to go Fly on this Pokemon, and it's not quite a one-hitter. She uses Perish Song on us, so we have to knock her out after that. And then Starmie comes out. A single Bite knocks that Pokemon out. So fortunately, she could not knock us out with Perish Song, and we easily win and get her badge. And with that section done, we can easily get back now to Vermilion City, where we'll just wake up Snorlax. And while we're there, I reckon we'll just take on Lieutenant Surge. We're at such a high level relative to him that I don't think it's going to matter. So of course, we will fight the Gentleman since he has the fewest Pokemon on his team, where a simple Bite will knock out the Pikachu. And then Flaffy comes out, yet again a one-hit KO, and we can move on to the gym leader himself. So Lieutenant Surge time. Let's see if he's just as bad as he's billed to be. He leads off with Raichu. We outspeed. We do not one-shot with Bite though, so it's a 2-hit KO there. Out next is the Magneton. This is the Pokemon we've had so much trouble with this entire challenge, but it's just a 2-hit KO because of our advanced level. Here he misses Thunder with Electabuzz, and it's a 2-hitter. Out next is this Electrode. It doesn't know any electric type moves, but Explosion does massive damage, and he has one last Electrode here, and he explodes, but we survive. So just like that, Lieutenant Surge goes down on the first attempt. It was a pretty close thing though, given the fact that we still don't have a good way to deal with those electric type Pokemon, especially in the case of that Magneton. We just still don't have any way to deal with that Pokemon in particular. So now we will wake up the Snorlax and just immediately run away since it's not required to fight, and we'll make our way up to Pewter City, where yet again we don't have anything great against Brock. We could learn the move Giga Drain here. I'm not sure if we want to yet though. I'm actually going to reroute just a little bit because I think that for now the best strategy might actually be to go on south. Let's just go check out Blaine's situation here because I actually think that will be an easier fight overall. So of course we can come find Blaine hiding in a cave. Let's go ahead and fight him and see how he goes. So first things first, he leads off with Magcargo. Since it is a rock type, I'm going to go Bite here. He curses, but it's still a 2-hit KO to knock that Pokemon out. Out next is the Magmar. We're simply going to fly here. He tried to Thunder Punch us. It did not matter. And finally, Rapidash. We fly. It's a 1-hit KO. Easy victory as we get through that on the first attempt. I figure what the heck, let's just go to Fuchsia City. Let's keep the easy wins coming for a minute, since naturally we don't really have anything to fear here. So of course, Janine is the ultimate joke of this version. Her Crobat goes down in a single bite. Out comes the Weezing, another easy 1-hit KO. Weezing number 2 easily goes down. And then the Venomoth, we can fly. She's going to double team just like Koga. We're not too worried about this. Easy KO right there. Finally, Ariados, yet again, can do nothing. Easy 1-hit KO, and we've defeated Janine. So we're just racking up victories at this point. We haven't gone attract strats or anything. In fact, I really don't want to use attract any more than I have to. So I'm going to go ahead and just change up my moveset here by adding Giga Drain over attract. I know it's not a good strategy because obviously we could just try to cheese fights with attract and Confuse Ray, but I honestly think that this is more interesting to see if we can actually get through by using some legit moves. So instead, let's go back to Viridian City and then make our way up to Brocky Boy, where Giga Drain should make this a pretty easy fight overall, but let's just see if that's actually the case. So of course we have to start off with Lightyear's Boy in here, where I'm simply going to Giga Drain on his Sandslash and get the easy 1-hit KO onto Brock himself. So Brock leads off with his Graveler. We're just going back for the Giga Drain strat, easy 1-hitter. Onix is out next. We're just going to give it more of the same treatment. Rhyhorn is kind of weak, so I'm just going to bite it, easy win. Amistar is 4 times weak to Giga Drain, so that's an easy victory. And out comes the Kabutops. We're just going to give it more of the same. And just like that, Brocky Boy never had a chance. So we've defeated all the gym leaders except Blue. That's kind of the standard situation. So I'm just going to route back down to Viridian City and let's take him on. So this is the first trainer that I actually expect to pose any sort of quote-unquote challenge against us. I don't think he's going to be that hard though. Let's just see. He leads off with his Pidgeot. I'm going to simply fly against this Pokemon, and it's not quite a 1-hitter. He mirror moves though, and so his fly misses and then we knock him out. Alakazam is out next. We're going to bite this Pokemon. It's not going to be a 1-hitter, but it does flinch that. Out next is the Rhydon. We're going to simply Giga Drain this Pokemon and get the 1-hit KO. Gyarados is out next. Technically, Giga Drain is neutrally effective here. We get a nice critical hit too. I'm going to confuse this Pokemon just to reduce its odds of hitting me. He full restores, but we can simply spam some Giga Drains here. He Hydro Pumps, which does decent damage, and now he's spamming full restores. Still, we can recover a little bit of health there. We can go into some bite strats now, just because I want to flinch him down. Arcanine is out next. I'm simply going to fly on this Pokemon, and it's appearing to be a 2-hitter. Flamethrower didn't do that much. We easily knock it out. And finally, his Exeggutor can basically do nothing here. 1 fly, 1 easy victory as we get to level 79. And of course, with all of the Kanto gym leaders done, it's time to just go back to Pallet Town, go visit Professor Oak. He's going to tell us about the legend himself that is Red, and we're going to go ahead and get our victory, I think. The real issue is going to be that Pikachu at the start of this battle. I think we might have to go for some flinch strats there, but really that's the only way that I see us having any major issues. We of course have Return in the bag if we need it, since it would be a strong physical move that would be neutrally effective against the Pikachu, but otherwise I don't think we really need to make any changes to our moveset here. So let's just see if our current set turns out to be enough. We of course have all of the rare candies available if we need them. We're going to try to go without grinding any more battles. So it's just a question of if we can get the job done or not. So now it's time to take on the legend himself, Red. Do we have enough to get through this fight? We are coming into the final fight with a level 79 Crobat with 256 HP. We have Bite, Fly, Confuse Ray, and Giga Drain on our moveset. We're holding black glasses just so that the Bite does a little more damage. I'm hoping that will help us take out the Espeon quickly. We are coming in with 182 attack, 166 defense, 151 special attack, 166 special defense, and 245 speed. You can see all the badge boosts are calculated in on the left side, so our stats are actually a little bit higher. Let's see if this is enough, or do we have to start slamming some rare candies? So first things first, we've got to deal with this Pikachu. I'm going to bite this Pokemon. It goes Thunder, and the Thunder critical hit one shot. So clearly that does not work. So what I think we're going to do instead is we're going to confuse this Pokemon, hoping it hits itself in confusion. It misses Charm turn 1, hits itself turn 2, and then we knock it out turn 3. Out next is the Espeon. We did less than half, but this one is a 3-hit KO with Bite. We do manage to get through. Snorlax is out next. We're going to confuse this Pokemon. I think this is the only way. Body Slam knocks us out. So we can see that our ranges aren't really what we want them to be against that Espeon. Clearly, confusion is a key part of getting through this, I think. If we had kept the move Attract, of course, we could go Attract strats here. We're also looking for flinches if at all possible, because Psychic just does massive damage when it hits. Here we will confuse the Snorlax. We will try to bite the Snorlax, maybe to get some flinches. It's just not enough to get through. So I think it's time to start slamming some rare candies and just see if they enable us to get through here. Obviously, if we get to something like level 83 to start, that will get us a couple of damage rounding thresholds, and that might be enough to get better ranges. So I'm going to stick with the same strategy of first Confuse Ray on the Pikachu. We knock it out without any damage. Let's see what we do now on Espeon. We did exactly half with Bite. It went Reflect, and that means that we did take it out in just a couple turns. We're on full health to the Snorlax this time. It goes Amnesia here, which obviously is kind of bad because that's going to lower our damage output, and with the Reflect on, it was extra bulky as well. Fly did decent damage here though, so we're going to keep using Fly, and we do manage to knock it out, though we're on fairly low health. Blastoise is out next though, so I'm going to Giga Drain on this Pokemon to recover HP. It's still a 3-hit KO with this move, but it misses all of the blizzards, so we easily get through that. Charizard is out next. I'm going to use Fly against this Pokemon. Let's see the range. It does slightly less than half. Here it does hit itself in confusion though, so I'm going to Fly again, and we do knock it out. Out finally is the Venusaur. We Fly, it goes for Solar Beam. We just barely miss getting the 1-hit KO, but Bite finishes it. So at level 83, we were able to beat the entire game with our Crobat. The only situation where we had to take optional battles was in the section just before Lance. So even on 0 DVs, Crobat actually is pretty darn decent. Granted, we got a ton of levels against Lance, which made Kanto significantly easier, but really to get to level 83 with a Pokemon by the end of the game with how many battles there are isn't that unreasonable. Most Pokemon can get into the 70s just by playing the game on minimum battles and then adding on the rare candies at the end. So really not too bad. Still, obviously, if you were running this Pokemon as a standard solo challenge, manipulate your DVs so that you get Hidden Power Ice with a good power. That will get you through the Lance fight much easier. Obviously, slap on vitamins, which we never use in our full game solo runs. And anything better than 0 DVs, you're just going to outperform this performance. So you'd probably get through somewhere in the 70s is my guess. Anyway, that does it for this one. Marbleous Dave, thank you so much for your support, man. You've been here for a ridiculous amount of time, and over on RBY Pokemon Challenges, this guy's been supporting for like 2 years. It's just incredible. I can't thank you enough. Anyway, that does it for this one. Happy belated Halloween. I will see you all in the next episode of the Whitney Minimum Battle series. Later.